Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, wherever you are in the world. This is the Endgame World News Analysis with myself, Lacey Lady Blaze King, and we are looking at some of the most terrifying headlines that we have seen in human history. We are looking at a level 4 headline coming out of Davos, the World Economic Forum, coming out just yesterday, and waking up to some of the headlines is absolutely terrifying. Let's take a look at these.
And I'm not here to sugarcoat the scale of that challenge or the sorry state of our world. We can't confront problems unless we look them squarely in the eye. And we are looking into the eye of a Category 5 hurricane. Our world is plagued by a perfect storm on a number of fronts. Start with the short term, a global economic crisis. The outlook, as we all know, is bleak. Many parts of the world face recession, and the entire world faces a slowdown. And we see deepening inequalities and the rapidly unfolding cost of living crisis affecting women and girls the most. Supply chain disruptions and an energy crunch, soaring prices, rising interest rates along with inflation, and debt levels pounding vulnerable countries. After all we have endured, we have not learned the global public health lessons of the pandemic. We are nowhere near ready for the pandemics to come. And to all that, another major and indeed existential challenge. We are flirting with climate disaster. Greenhouse gas emissions are at record levels and growing. The commitment to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees is nearly going up in smoke. Without further action, we are headed to a 2.8 degree increase, and the consequences, as we all know, would be devastating. All these challenges are interlinked, and they are piling up like cars in a chain reaction crash. We learned last week that certain fossil fuel producers were fully aware in the 70s that their core product was making our planet. And just like the tobacco industry, they rode roughshod over their own science. Some in big oil peddled the big lie. And like the tobacco industry, those responsible must be held to account. Add to this toxic brew yet another combustible factor: conflict, violence, war. Especially the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Not only because of the untold suffering of the Ukrainian people, but because of its profound global implications on global food and energy prices, on trade and supply chains, on questions of nuclear safety, and on the very foundations of international law and the United Nations Charter. We face the gravest levels of geopolitical division and mistrust in generations, and it is undermining everything.
What we're seeing here is a biblical account of what will happen in the time of the last days. A lot of people don't know why things are happening. They do know what is happening. They know that there is war, there's economic crisis, they know that there's pandemics, they know that there is a lot of violence and issues going on in the earth itself, and they know how to put it together. There's another report, I'm about to show this clip and show this video, where it states that the world is experiencing a polycrisis. I woke up to a brand new word today.
The World Economic Forum laid out some of those problems in its global risk report. It warns that COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine have thrust the global economy into different times. It says, quote, the resulting new economic era may be one of growing divergence between rich and poor countries and the first rollback of human development in decades.
But let me explain to you about the term polycrisis. The reason why it's new is because what we've had before has been one event after the other. One event after the other. At least we had recovery time after there was one event, then the next. If you think of all the major world cataclysmic shaking events that have happened that have rocked the news headlines, at least in the last 150 years, when we've been printing and we've been communicating the news, you look at things like World War I, World War II, you look at the Twin Towers, you look at the Civil Rights Movement, you look at Holocaust, you look at these events that have happened, they've happened one after the other. Even with the AIDS pandemic, we didn't have anything going on. Even with the earthquake of 1989 in California, we didn't have anything else going on. But they came out today and they said that we're having a polycrisis. This echoes exactly what Jesus said. They actually asked Jesus in the biblical Christian Bible, what is the sign of the end? What shall the sign of thy coming be? And when shall be the end of the world? When shall these things be? And he gives a litany of things that are going to happen. But he ends it with this statement. He says, wheresoever the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered. The eagles are gathering. What did he mean? The carcass represented the very end of human history that we knew on this earth. They asked very explicitly, when shall the sign of the end be? And he told them, wheresoever you see the eagles gathered, there the carcass is. So he didn't give us a 1, 2, 3, 1,500 years, 2,000 years timeline. He gave us an events timeline. When all of these things happen at the same time, when they had not happened at the same time before, when the earth starts to experience a polycrisis, that's when you know you have entered into the beginning of sorrows. People, we have entered into the beginning of sorrows. It is time to get your house in order. It is time to get right with the God who put this in the book, because I promise you this, we are on autopilot. That's why this show is called The End Game, because we are on autopilot. This is God's end game. And when you look at the dictionary, the dictionary definition of what the end game is. I thought I wrote it down. I wish I would have. But the end game definition is a ordered set of events. Oftentimes, I like how the Urban Dictionary put it, oftentimes without outsiders knowing really what's going on. Because this is an end game. It says the end parts in a process. It says that with very few cards left on the table, what is your end game? If this was a chess match, what is your end game? And so we are witnessing God's end game come to pass on this earth, just like he said in the Bible that was left behind, that so many people debate. You cannot debate with the fact that what was written 2,000 years ago is actually coming to pass right now in 2023. There are 3 things that you can do. You can either commit suicide because the spirit is in the land. You can either bury your head and act like it's not happening, or you can buckle up and go for the ride. It's eyes wide open. I'm not worried about this woke generation saying anything, because all they're doing is throwing a temper tantrum because someone is trying to make them work and do the right thing. They're missing the whole honor code of what the earth was built on. And now we have this troublous times as never was seen before. These, oh my goodness, these are the end games of humanity, of the enemy, and of God. In Davos, so oddly put to me this morning when I woke up, DAVOS, demonic and villainous, organizing satanically. Yeah, it's that kind of time going on in this earth. There's a lot of demonic activity. There's a lot of deceit. There's a lot of wars. There's a lot of peace being stolen from the earth. There's a lot of things going on that Jesus said that, by the way, the order that he gave those things matches up with the 7 seals. We are seeing the opening of the 4th and the 5th seal, the 3rd and the 4th seals. It's time to get ready. It's time to get right with the God of this Bible. It's time to do what we know that we needed to do. It's not going to get better. Earth is not going to get better. We're on autopilot. If you want to make sure that you stay up on what I'm finding out, what I'm discovering, and what I'm being held accountable to bring out, make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you tune in. And I will see you at the next headline, because I know there's more to come.